I got the horse right here, the name is Paul Revere, and here's a guy that says if the weather's clear, can do.
This is Bill Duncliffe welcoming you back to another edition of the Can Do Horse Racing Podcast, where the heroes and history of horse racing come alive, part of the In the Money Media Network. Last week was part one of our chat with legendary trainer, surface innovator, and one-time jockey Michael Dickinson. We continued our discussion about choices we can make in our sport to address the public perception and safety of our sport. We also talked about DeHaas, more about his unlikely beginnings, which makes for an equally fascinating story in my opinion. But first I wanted to talk about the ongoing issues with medication abuse and the seemingly miraculous turnarounds that certain trainers seem to produce. As you'll hear, this is just one of those things where he and I are on different planes. He did have a very good point. That being that, as athletes, these animals are going to require certain treatments, medicinal in nature, that allow them to perform at peak levels. Every professional sport out there has medical staff deployed to address the bumps and bruises that come with performing at the highest level to allow them to continue to do just that. So we likely need to do a better job of making that point to the increasingly critical general public. But at the same time, every sport, especially ours, needs to make sure to sternly address those practitioners that cross the line.
Let's talk about the drug aspect to the game too. Now that we're talking about safety, and I really appreciate you bringing up these safety issues. Like Medina Spirit, we talked about it before we started recording here. We don't even know who the Kentucky Derby winner is from last year yet. I see the stories about this. Let's take the Medina Spirit story. I see, X number of picograms or whatever. It reminds me that every time you create a rule about anything, right, then what you're enabling is those who want to get around the rules, right? So, and I see, them a lot better than I do. Class A, Class B, Class C, Class D drugs and different dosage levels and everything. How, we've got to get off of this type of regimen for the sport to survive, I think. I don't think that's too strong of a statement. Do you?
I don't know enough about it to say. I don't think it's as big a problem as some people say.
Okay. Why is that?
Well, I just don't think there is. And, I meant to disqualify a horse because it's got 1 million for this and 1 million for that.
And I'm not talking about the Medina Spirit issue in particular, just in general in the sport and the drugs and the usage. I mean, We've got to get better at this, don't we?
Oh, I don't think there's not. It's 0.0001% positives.
Mm-hmm.
That's not much. I mean, is aspirin? Are you worried about aspirin? Or Gastrogard for a horse's stomach? They have ulcers like you and me. Are you worried about aspirin and Gastrogard?
No, you bring up a good point that look, these are athletes and there are going to be aches and pains and issues and those need to be treated, and sometimes those are with legitimate therapeutic methods and substances. I don't disagree with you on that. It's, I guess let me make it you see fairly often enough, I guess, in this game, horses who aren't doing very well physically or just aren't doing very well on the track. A different trainer claims them, let's say, and all of a sudden the improvement in performance is off the charts. Now, that's not to say that there are some horsemen who can't look at a horse and say, I see the change that needs to happen here. But some of it almost seems to defy.
Well, there's not much about that. Most horses, when they're claimed, are what they are.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they just get a bit lucky. I mean, the surface change or a castration could help a horse.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't get that many move up that much.
No, I agree with you that, when I see a claim, I like to see some type of change. Is it the distance? Is it the surface? Is it the class, I guess? I mean, if there's some type of associated change and then feel pretty good about that. But there are some cases that do stand. Maybe it happens at smaller tracks. I'm not sure. But
well, you're not sure. You just said that yourself.
I did say that. No, you're right. You're right. You're right. I don't have any statistics in front of me. Let's put it that way.
No. Well, right. Change the subject. What's the next one?
The issue of the whip is another one that there have been halting steps to address, perhaps not all that successfully in California and New Jersey most recently. It seems to me as if Michael isn't advocating for a silly no-whip policy or an equally absurd you can only use the whip X number of times argument, but instead for a not unreasonable change in the philosophy of handling a horse that right now seems to be the purview of only a select few practitioners, but that needs to spread among jockey colonies across the country.
Well, let's go back to some of the safety. I like some of the whip is an interesting one that you brought because there was obviously a huge controversy in California a couple of years ago when the new whip rules came out. You said you never used one, or other than just for safety only in the 11 years that you were.
No, well, that wasn't quite right. I just said I sold my whip at the nearly new shop. I hardly ever gave them a slap.
Yeah. Okay.
Slapping once down the shoulder. I'm dead against the whip. If there's no whip, well, I think we definitely carry them. We've got to carry them for safety.
Mm-hmm.
But, some that say for safety for steering.
Yep.
You don't steer with a whip. You steer with your hands on the reins on the steering wheel.
Right.
That's bullshit, that is.
Yep.
But however, I think I wouldn't like to go out in a race without one just in case.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going to happen? All right, so there's no whip, or we just carry whip. We can't belt them to make them go faster. There's still one winner in every race. Horses run back sooner. They have a longer racing career, better for the public perception. It's a charter for horsemanship. I told Johnny Velasquez that if there's no whip, the best thing to come for you, Johnny, because you can ride.
Mm-hmm.
He's got strength in his arms and legs. He's a very good rider. I said, you can win a lot more races. You take the whip away from some of these guys, they've got nothing left.
They got nothing right.
It's a charter for horsemanship. Johnny, you'll win more races.
Now, that must have been an interesting conversation because Johnny was one of the vocal opponents against.
I didn't win him over.
Okay.
I didn't win him over, but I gave him a good thing. I said, well, he is a good rider.
Mm-hmm.
He's strong. He can push one out. It's going to happen. It's going to happen in Europe in less than 3 years. There's going to be no whip in Europe, and it's going to follow here.
Okay.
And the sooner the better. We've got to carry one. I mean, worst case scenario, you get a big, stroppy 2-year-old colt who really thinks he should be covering mares rather than running around the racetrack. He might, going down to the start, when he starts rearing up, want a couple of slaps down his backside just to make him pay attention. But that's the only chance. Not when he's trying his best in that last furlong, he's flat out. Petrol gauge, the gas gauge is empty. But we're not hitting him then.
Well, one of the things is this is so common. It's almost I want to say comical isn't the right word, but you'll see a tiring horse being hit with the right hand, let's say, coming down the stretch. And what does he do? He veers to the left. He doesn't like it, right? I mean, he doesn't like it.
Exactly. Talk about safety. The stewards at Monmouth this year, because they're very strict at Monmouth, they said there are a lot less inquiries. I mean, as you say, you hit him on the left and they go to the right and vice versa.
Yeah.
So the whip is more dangerous.
And yet that kind of comes down to jockey education too, I think, right? Because I think for some of them now, it's just like a default, he's slowing down or I'm not getting the same energy from him. I need to hit him with this thing. It doesn't feel like there is as much kind of jockey monitoring or education going on as like, they used to talk about jockeys going to film school with the stewards back in the day. Maybe it still happens, Michael, but you don't hear about that as much anymore, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know. Chris McCarron and Jerry Bailey are not in favor of the whip.
Well, Jerry would know, right? I mean, and Chris McCarron, of course, New England fellow too. I got to put in a plug for New England, but obviously successful jockeys who knew how to, and I think I actually interviewed Jerry about his experiences with cigar, and he talked about all, being able to just sense what was going on with the horse. To your point, hands and heels, he could sense what was going on.
Technology has certainly changed many aspects of our lives for the better, especially in terms of medical diagnosis and analysis. Another innovation that Michael is, and all of us should be very much in favor of, is the soft stride sensor that can be used to identify otherwise difficult to detect anomalies in a horse's stride pattern.
So the soft stride sensor, that to me is almost an outgrowth of your work with the Tapeta surface.
No.
Okay.
No, it's a gadget put on the back of the saddle.
Yep.
And I'm not doing it justice at all. Dr. David Lambert is the man you want to see about these in Lexington, Kentucky. And you put it on the back of it, and it'll show you a graph. And basically, you don't want the graph, the spike, to go above the red lines.
Okay.
If it goes above these red lines, an indication of an injury coming up. That's a very simplistic thing, but it really works. I mean, as trainers, we're all scared. Is the horse? We never quite know if he's going to come home sound.
Yeah, and I wasn't suggesting that you invented it, but your interest in safety, I guess, is
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. So what does it sense when it's on the back of the horse? Is it the shortening of the stride, or?
It mentions stride length, stride frequency. It measures about 50 different parameters. And I'm not going to say anything more about it because I don't know enough about it. So I shouldn't talk about something I know little about, except it works. And in another 2 years, it'll be in every racetrack in America.
Yeah, it should be. It sounds like. I mean, I'm guessing too, and I know you don't know, but as a data guy, I'm guessing that if you have repeatedly worked a horse and you have this on the horse's back all the time, then you can see the anomalies too, right? I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we've all had horses who we thought were dead sound and would suddenly go out and hurt themselves. And we didn't see that coming, but this would happen. This is the orange light before the red light.
Okay. Yeah, no, look, we, I hate to say, in my favorite venue, New York Racing, the number of breakdowns the last couple of years have been pretty substantial, I got to say. In morning training all the time too, right? More than. I hadn't heard that.
New York are very good on the whole.
There's been some pretty significant numbers, I think.
Are you sure? New York have good trainers. They have a good trackman there. They do a good job. They're very professional. I think you're wrong to pick out New York.
I'm not picking up. Just there's a gentleman who I follow on the web who reports them, and I think.
How does he know what's happening?
I think he's getting them from the Gaming Control Board, actually, or whatever the reporting authority is. I mean, maybe it's not percentage-wise. Maybe it's not what it is. But I remember seeing some numbers and they were shocking to me. But we can agree to table that one.
Having been challenged by Michael, I did go back and look at the statistics from the New York State Gaming Commission site regarding horse deaths on the New York Racing Association circuit. I would love to have actually been wrong, but sadly I can report what I believe to be disturbing numbers of horse deaths at NYRA tracks, to wit, 82 in the year 2020. In 2021, 76 deaths. And as of this recording done in late March of 2022, 18 deaths, which projected over the course of a full year could amount to nearly 75 deaths. In fact, as I record this today, Casilda 40 Tails, trained by Juan Vasquez, suffered a fatal heart attack in a race at Aqueduct. However you look at them, those fatality statistics, by the way, that represent once living, breathing animals, are numbers which, in my opinion, we simply must do a better job of highlighting and reducing. I'll say it again. Safety is the most important issue we must address in our sport. Of course, you don't talk with Michael Dickinson without talking about the incredible feat of training DeHaas to his second Breeders' Cup Mile victory off of one race following a 715-day layoff. That story has actually been told many times before. I was equally as interested in DeHaas's very modest beginnings, the reasons for those modest beginnings, how those reasons have come to dominate sales analyses at major venues, and why, in doing so, they perhaps are responsible for eliminating the possibility of some promising careers.
If you don't mind, and I'm sure you've talked about this one a million times, I do want to ask you a little bit about DeHaas. And obviously he just passed away recently, and that was very sad. It brought up, of course, all the stories. I was interested in researching him. Not too many two-time Breeders' Cup winners will say that they started out at Turf Paradise on the dirt. That was a little bit of a surprise to me.
Right, well, what happened? He's quite a well-bred horse, but as a foal, he lost half a foot.
Oh.
And then as a yearling, he had bone spurs on his hocks. So when he went through the sales ring, obviously he was going to fail all the bets. So he only made, I think, $5,000 as a year. So, that wasn't a direct pass to Belmont or Santo Anita, was it?
Mm-hmm. No.
So he went there and he won those 3 races. And then we went to buy him and he actually failed the bet for us, but we bought him. Dr. Baker passed him. And the rest you know about.
Yeah. You raised an interesting point about failing the bets in the ring. And this one I find very interesting because now in the sales process, there's, as extensive testing, scans, et cetera, that is done. And it's almost like you start, putting ding marks against if you see this or that, which doesn't mean that the horse can't run, but it starts to knock them down in value very quickly, this issue or that issue,
Well, I only half joking say there's no way a horse can be a good horse unless he's failed at least one bet.
That's right.
Right, now that's controversial, and I know it is. I like the bets, and the bets are good. The bets don't say pass or fail. They examine a horse, and they say it's got this, and it's got a pimple here, and it's got a spot here, and it's got something there. They don't say fail. Mm-hmm. They just say it could be an issue. So, of course, most people run wild. But nearly all the best horses I've had have failed the vet.
Wow.
And the horses, the really good horses other people have had, is a mile long. And they're not failing the vet, they fail the owners. It's not their vet's fault.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm always amazed, like Saratoga every summer when I get up there, you'll see the horses that, especially the 2-year-olds. This one sold for $800,000. I'll never forget the horse. It was a Steve Asmussen horse. This is probably 10, 12 years ago now. Oh, Brock was the name of the horse. Sold for $3.7 million. And I was sitting there in the grandstand that day, and I actually went down to the paddock because the horse was cold on the board. I mean, he was like 701, a solid trainer, probably had Santana up on him, and $3.7 million, and the horse was 701. And I have an untrained eye. I couldn't see anything, but in a field of 12, he ran probably 7th, and I was sitting with my wife, and I said, look, there goes $3.7 million. And he never won a race. Because after that, I was interested, and I was obsessing about it, and I tracked him. He never won a race, but to your point, he passed every vet exam, obviously, if he sold for $3.7 million, but he didn't have what it takes to win even one race, never mind, justify a $3.7 million investment.
Yeah, but that's not the only one. There's been lots of them.
Oh, exactly. There's many of them. Right. You see any number of 6-figure, and 7-figure horses debuting on the track, and unless they win a classic, I don't see how you justify that investment, but those are people that have more money than I do, I guess. I guess that's what it comes down to.
In the spirit of self-correction, I must confess it was Ramon Dominguez, not Rafael Santana, up for Steve Asmussen on Brock, and that Brock actually did win a race in his career, a lone maiden special effort at Tampa, capping his lifetime earnings at just over $49,000 off of a purchase price of $2.3 million, not $3.7 million. Still, I think the basic point stands. A lot of money, but not a lot of results. That takes a strong stomach. I suppose I should also cite in fairness that Brock's first race at Saratoga was won by $500,000 purchase price, nearly $2 million earner, Stay Thirsty. We wrapped up our interview talking about Michael's current status and future plans. It's clear his gears are still turning, thinking, what can we do? What can we do better? How can we do it better? If that's the definition of not being normal, we need more people who are not normal. Racing's best days are ahead of us if we are unafraid to embrace thoughtfulness and change. Merely following the same shop-worn recipe is going to lead the sport down what I fear is an increasingly stale pathway.
Last thing, Mike, are you getting back into training now? Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
I'm getting out. I've just got 8 horses. I just do it for fun. Just train for some friends of mine. And it's just, I enjoy it. I have no pressure. And I enjoy, not having too many horses, just 8. I'm very close to them. I take them out in the morning in the field.
Mm-hmm.
I talk to them. I don't think they listen, a bit like my wife, but I do talk to them.
Well, training for friends must be nice too, because I always say that, a trainer it's a hard job for any number of reasons, right? The hours, never a day off, but, you have to be a salesman too, right? To get the owners, to trust their horses with you. And I always remember talking with, Randy Schulhofer, Scotty Schulhofer's son, and his dad said to him the difference between, when he first started out training and, by the time he retired, he said, I used to have one guy call me about 40 horses. Now I have 40 guys calling me about one horse.
Right. Yeah, okay, well, training horse, you've got to look after the clients, though. They want to know about the horses.
Mm-hmm.
It's easier now with videos, because they love seeing the videos.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah, we video the horses next to, during a breeze.
Yep. Okay. Michael, I really appreciate a wide-ranging conversation. I really do. This has been enjoyable for me, and I hope it's been enjoyable for you. I will...
People say I'm not normal.
Why be normal? That's the old statement, right? Why be normal? And thinking outside the box is, I think it's what you have to do to be successful in any kind of profession, right? You got to, if you want to be successful, you got to be just like everybody else. Then how is that success, right? I mean, and you got to, the other thing is you got to live with yourself, right? You got to live with yourself.
No, it's the pioneers that take the arrows.
That's right. They do. That's one of my favorite lines, actually. That's great. But look, at the end of the day, you've got this successful surface business, with your wife going on. That comes from the out-of-the-box thinking. I'm sure you took a few arrows because there was a lot of resistance to the artificial surfaces early on. But, you were able to talk Gulfstream most recently into adopting the surface. That was a big change for them, right? And the rumor is that at some point New York might do the same thing. And I'm not asking you to divulge any trade secrets, but, it seems like it's continuing to grow to the efforts that you guys have made.
Well, it's great when racing comes off the turf. In fact, 11 runners on the turf and it rains and you've got 3. That's bad for business, bad for owners, trainers, bettors, and the mutual manager.
Oh, yeah. It's terrible.
So it's terrific. It's terrific for that.
Yeah, no, exactly. The horses stay in, it comes down to the mutuals, right? I mean, no one wants to bet on a 3-horse field. No. I mean, there are people that do.
I want to thank Michael for a fun, engaging, and thoughtful conversation. Let's all take his approach to heart and just find ways to do better for our sport. We'll see you next week again for another episode of the Can Do Horse Racing Podcast. In the meantime, may good health, happiness, and gratitude for both be yours today and always.
I got the horse. Ride!